Do you dream of fairies and princesses? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show, Jared Benefield, who is a patron of DCTC over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC, joins the show to discuss a person that he is very passionate about. Today, it's all about Britney Spears and Disney. Of course, Britney has been in the news a lot lately with the whole Free Britney movement. There's been so much negativity swirling around the difficulties in Britney's life that it can sometimes be hard to remember the joy she's brought to so many people. And it all started with Disney. In the 1990s, Britney got her start on MMC, the all-new Mickey Mouse Club, and went on to become a superstar with several concerts and performances in the Disney parks. We discuss it all, and it's coming your way right after this. When you hear the words Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, do images of a goat with a stick of dynamite in his mouth conjure in your mind? Well, it does for the folks over at Who's It's and What's It's, as they've designed a Dynamite Goat t-shirt for those deep-cut Disney fans. But it doesn't end there. There is so much unique apparel to discover over at Who's It's and What's It's, and listeners of DCTC can get 15% off of their entire order simply by using code DCTC when checking out. So go ahead, click on the link in this episode's description, and don't forget to use code DCTC to save.
It's time to turn back the clock, because nostalgia is king.
Hello, Jared Benefield, a patron of Disney Coast to Coast. Welcome to the show to talk about something you love today.
Yeah, hey Jeff, thanks for having me. I'm definitely excited. It's fun to throw back here and talk about, for sure, Disney and Britney. So,
yeah, now listen, Britney Spears is going through some hard times recently. She's in the news constantly, and I was never like the biggest Britney fan. During that time period, it was all in sync for me. But of course, like, those pop stars, I feel like Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera were all interconnected. Whether or not you were a fan of each of them, they were just so interconnected. So you knew everything that was going on with all of them. And whether you admitted it or not, I think you kind of loved them all, even though you surely had a favorite.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, for sure, Britney was like, out of those you mentioned, was number one for me. But like, I've definitely was a boy band guy. And NSYNC, definitely loved all the NSYNC hits and had their albums as well. And of course, like Backstreet Boys and 98 Degrees and stuff, which I know we'll talk a little bit about, probably the connections with the 98 Degrees and some of the things we did later on. But yeah, for sure, all those are totally intertwined. And then, of course, the connections through the MMC.
Yeah, of course, which is just so crazy. But now you are a huge Britney fan, as you said, and you were describing to me a little bit like where your fandom went. So let's go back to like 1998, 99. And what was, young Jared doing with, like, the room was decked out and everything, right?
Yeah, I definitely had like a million posters in my room. And all my friends knew how much I love Britney. So I had this big 17th birthday party with it was probably the biggest birthday party I've had in my life. And all my friends came over, and like every gift I would open was like a Britney action figure or a Britney doll or a Britney something, because they just knew like how much I loved her at the time. And I remember the first time I saw the Baby One More Time video, I was spending the night over at a buddy's house, and MTV was on back when they actually played, music videos all night. And that video came on, and I was just like, who is this? Like, because I didn't connect it yet with MMC or anything, but I was like, okay, I got to like know more about this girl.
I remember seeing that video as well. I'm pretty sure it was on TRL, Total Request Live. And, that's where I was obsessed with TRL back in the day. That was assignment television. After school, you go home, you watch TRL. It's live in New York. I'm 4 hours from New York and Boston. I ended up being on TRL. Carson Daly interviewed me once. I was out in the crowd doing, remember Window Love, where he'd come over and look out at the folks down in the street on Broadway. I was down there with a sign with two of my sisters, and I put like battery operated strobe lights on it. And he was like, "You guys come on up." So he pulled us up into the studio, and it was clearly a slow day on TRL because he pulled us up into the studio, and like we did this whole segment with Carson Daly. And I gotta tell you, like, this was probably early 2000s, I think. So it was the height of TRL. But it was this weird thing where like people kind of didn't admit to it, that like they watched TRL. It was a little nerdy, I guess. But after I appeared on it, everybody I knew was like, "Saw you on TRL." I was like, "Wait a sec, you watch TRL?" And like, "Wait, I was flipping through the channels." I was like, "Yeah, okay." Right. Everybody was flipping through the channels at the exact moment I was on. It's so stupid. Right.
Oh no, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I never got a chance to like be at a taping, or I was in Times Square at the time that TRL was on, and I remember looking up and seeing it from from down on the ground, and like, oh, there's where Carson Daly would stand and stuff. But yeah, I fully I was exactly what you said. Like every day I would get home from school and it would be on, or in the summertime. I just remember having TRL on like when I was home from school and stuff. So
I just remember that the day that happened to me, that morning was my first time trying to get into the Rosie O'Donnell show. And I was literally the next person to be allowed in, and they cut the line. Oh. And I was devastated. I mean, devastated. I ended up trying 12 times for Rosie, got in once. So I'm grateful for that one time. But that was my first time, and I was devastated. So when Carson Daly brought me on, like, I told him that story, and he was like, "Yeah, it's cool. Like, it's fine. Don't worry about it, dude." I was like, "No, I'm worried. I really want to go to Rosie's." So, yeah, that was my interaction with Carson Daly. And, yeah. Totally nerdy. And one other thing I'll say about TRL before we move on to Britney and Disney is I just remember going back after MTV had moved out of that space, and it was like some clothing store or something. And I went up into the clothing store and like went up to that window where I stood and like looked out at the crowd. It was really funny because I'd been hanging out with the people down on the street for a while, and we were chatting and becoming friends. And so like when I got brought up, they were all so happy. And so when I went over to the window and looked out, like the whole crowd was cheering because they were just so happy that like one of us was picked. And it was
totally.
It was an epic moment. Anyway, let's get into Britney Spears and Disney because, of course, I'm sure most people know that it all started with the all-new Mickey Mouse Club, which, of course, we knew better as MMC. And this was a series on the Disney Channel that ran from 1989 to 1995. But Britney Spears and a lot of the people who ended up becoming very famous from it, they came to the show later, toward the end around 1993. But of course, we had Britney Spears, we had Christina Aguilera, Justin Timberlake, JC Chazet from NSYNC, Kerry Russell, Ryan Gosling. I mean, it was a pretty epic cast. Do you remember watching this show at all? It was back when Disney Channel, you still had to pay for it.
I do remember a little bit, and it's funny when we discuss a little bit later on. I saw on one of the videos where the little preview thing that you're mentioning would pop up for you to call and order it.
To subscribe, call 1-800-847-9000. I'll tell you what, I called that phone number today.
Oh, did you?
I did. It rang, and it rang, and it rang. I was like, I'm really curious if this goes to anything now. And it just kept ringing. And eventually Verizon was like, they're not answering, hang up, sort of thing. But I saw that on the screen as well when we were watching it. And I was like, oh, that brings back memories. Those free trials, we never paid for Disney Channel, but those free trials, I'll tell you, MMC was one of the shows that I was watching as long as we had that free trial. So, a strange little story about MMC is that Matt Casella is the name of the guy who cast that show, who clearly is very talented at, seeing talent in young performers because they all became super, super famous. But strangely enough, I've met Matt. I know Matt. Well, I don't know Matt. I know his sister well. And when she found out I was like a big Disney fan, she's like, oh yeah, my brother cast that show. And I kind of didn't take her too seriously. And then I looked into it. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Like, he legitimately discovered all of these people. Wow. And I met him and I was like, dude. And he's very casual about it. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's a job. I was like, no, that's insane, dude. That's a skill that you got.
I can't believe he is so casual about it because, I mean, the amount of stars, obviously, that we've already mentioned that came from it. I mean, I wonder how it was with, I mean, I suppose they just come to him and audition and he's selecting them, but man, what an eye.
Yeah, he has a very, he has the eye to see kind of like the spark, the it factor, and he should really be on, what is that show called? Like America's Got Talent or The X Factor or one of those shows. He really should be one of the judges on there because he's quite good at it.
I'll say he's Simon Cowell.
Yeah, I mean, he's better than Simon Cowell. He's just less of a personality, but yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so of course, there are clips from Britney being on MMC all over the internet. We watched a bunch of them, and if you didn't watch MMC, it was basically kind of Saturday Night Live-ish for kids. There were like silly sketches that they would do, and there were a lot of musical numbers. I think, it was interesting to see Britney and Justin performing together at such a young age. And it's just, I mean, their history from performing on MMC to both being in these huge pop groups, or, she was a pop solo artist, but these big groups, and then, dating for a while, and then the fallout and all that stuff. But it's all started way back here on MMC. It's crazy. And one of the numbers that you often see is them singing the song "I'll Take You There," and it was super cute. Were there any musical numbers that you really appreciated taking a look back at?
Falling in Love with You. I definitely noted that one. I didn't know who the lead was on that song, but it was just funny because there was Justin, Christina, and Britney were all the backups in that one. And I definitely noticed, it's just had such that 90s vibe to it. I mean, their outfits, the dancing, the lighting. JT had like the baggy overalls on, super 90s. So I appreciated that because, I mean, again, just playing to that nostalgia and remember. But yeah, I mean, I made same kind of observations. I mean, just seeing Britney and Justin doing their dancing together, and then thinking about kind of them not at the time knowing, that they would have a relationship later on and things. It's just pretty funny to see. So yeah.
Now, when they did come on the show, that is when the show kind of went through this revamp because they, those sets were kind of like a club, had a very club-like atmosphere. I don't know if you remember this, but MMC had it was a diner. And it was like a Mickey Mouse Club diner. And those are honestly the ones that I remember more than anything. Those are the ones I kind of grew up with. The Britney ones came later. I don't think I watched them until years later, to be honest. I don't remember all of them on the show. I remember some of more of the old school, all new Mickey Mouse Club stuff. But yeah, they definitely went through quite a few changes. One thing that I noticed watching this is Britney was kind of a better kid singer than she is an adult singer. She had a very powerful voice for a little girl. But then when she started doing her pop music, it's very airy. It's not this strong voice that we heard. And it's kind of weird. I'm she had a great voice. And it's not like she was a boy. A boy's voice changes drastically from being a child to an adult. But I don't know. She had a much stronger voice as a child.
I noticed the same exact thing and had those same thoughts. Another one that I noticed was when she sang "I Feel for You." Yeah, she has kind of more that deeper Britney sounding voice that you kind of remember. But yeah, as a child, I mean, she just, all that talk about her doing the lip syncing and stuff later on at her shows and stuff, and how good of a singer is Britney really? You could see the talent that she absolutely was a phenomenal singer and laid that down on the records. I'm sure the dancing and all that is part of what played into, the lip syncing stuff. But yes, such a unique voice. You hear Britney sound, that's Britney right away. And she had that as a young child for sure.
Well, since you brought up the lip syncing stuff, it was really interesting watching some of the specials we'll get to, when she was performing in the Disney parks. And one thing I noticed was it wasn't necessarily lip syncing what I was saying. Now, I'm not talking about her live concerts. I'm talking about these TV specials. But what I did notice was there seemed to be a backtrack where she was kind of singing along with herself. So you could tell that some of the vocals were live, but it was almost like she was singing in the car along with her CD. And I was like, what a weird choice. It's yes, she's singing live, but there's also these pre-recorded vocals. It's not backup singers. It's her voice, it sounds like. It was a weird choice and kind of obvious what was going on.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know, kind of commit to one or the other, either sing or lip sync. This was like an in-between.
Yeah, no, totally. And I definitely noticed that as well. I think it's kind of that, we want it to sound good, but then you kind of notice that you're like, hey, this is sounding exactly like the record sounds. And you're like, that shouldn't be happening live. But then you get those kind of, she'll be like, thank you, everyone. Or, and you know that it's coming through on the microphone, but you're right. It is kind of an odd choice to kind of do both.
It is weird. Before we move on to those concerts, how about, were there any of the sketches that you enjoyed that she was in? She did some really weird sketches. And frankly, sketches on kid shows are kind of painful to watch as an adult, but were there any that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ones that I definitely have mentioned here is the Yuck Breaths skit.
Yes.
You remember that one. It's so funny. Justin Timberlake is playing the character Martin, who wants to date I can't remember what Britney's character was named in that, but he comes over in the library and he's kind of a nerdy character that a young girl probably wouldn't be interested in. And so she quickly sprays that mouth spray that is supposed to make your breath smell horrendous and gives him a nice breath in the face that, so that one stood out. The one where they're throwing the food against the wheel for the cafeteria food.
Oh yeah, on the wall. Yeah, they were testing how well food would stick to the wall. I was like, this is just the weirdest stuff. But it feels like stuff the kids are writing that clearly kids enjoyed. Like, I'm sure I enjoyed it as a kid, but it's weird to watch as an adult. One that was a bit problematic these days probably would be the Kung Fu Classics, where they did a version of Little Women, but they were doing it like a kung fu movie where like the lip sync was off and just very stereotypical kung fu sort of stuff with all these little white girls and stuff. And I was like, oh, this would not fly today. This is from a different time.
I thought the same exact thing on that skit. Yeah, they showed a little bit of a behind the scenes on that one too. It looked like it was probably fun for them to make, like with the jumping around and flying around and kind of kung fu style and stuff. But it's definitely kind of a cultural, iffy skit there.
Yeah. Now, we also got a little bit of, Britney showing her real life as a kid back home, a hometown video from Kentwood, Louisiana, where we see her go-karting with her friends and playing basketball and working with her grandma's seafood business, which I thought was kind of interesting, and of course taking dance classes and stuff. So that was something honestly going back to Walt's day. Walt very much wanted real kids on the original Mickey Mouse Club, and from what I understand, when they were scouting for those kids, before Matt Casella was scouting the kids, the people that Walt had doing it, he would be like, go to playgrounds, go to schools, find real kids to be on this show. And it kind of felt like they were wanting to emphasize that on, the all-new Mickey Mouse Club is, no, these are real kids. Check them out when they're home in their hometowns and stuff. Yeah, they come down to Orlando to shoot this show a few months out of the year or whatever, but they're real kids. And we got a little bit of that with Britney.
No, exactly. I enjoyed those little looks into like you said, where she grew up and just talking about, exactly who she was as a person outside of her famedom that we know, and just kind of how that shaped her childhood and who she is. And she mentioned, when I come down here, my Southern draw comes out pretty hard. And she was showing how she eats crawfish and, just everyday things that people could relate to, especially ones growing up in the South like that. So I really did enjoy those little snippets where she would discuss those types of things.
Yeah, now that was all way back in around 1993, but fast forward to 1999, that was a big year for Britney Spears and a big year for Britney Spears and Disney. Let's start with the 1999 Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade, where Britney took part in that. Of course, I've talked about the Easter Parade quite a few times on this show, but on this one, Britney Spears, and I remember this when this happened, she had hurt her knee and had to go through knee surgery. And I just remember this being like a big thing all over pop culture news. Oh, Britney's knee surgery. Because let's face it, like we were just talking about her voice. When she started doing the pop music, it wasn't the strongest voice, but the thing that was undeniable were her dance moves. So you bust up the knee, the dance moves are gone. And so it was like a big story. And they kind of had to work around that for the 1999 Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade.
Yeah, I definitely remember that as well. And like you said, working around it, it was pretty funny to see they had her kind of sitting down. She couldn't move at all. They had the dancers going around her. And I also noticed that stage that they had on the back lot there. It kind of this will be good for you. It gave me a little Newsies vibe. I don't know if you got that, but
yeah, Streets of America, man. Yeah, they set up a stage on Streets of America for Britney, and it had like the crates and stuff, and it had a very it was, oh God, I love Streets of America. I feel like I've been talking about Streets of America so much recently, but of course now it's Galaxy's Edge. And since her knee was busted up, as you said, she was carried out. Of course, she sang Baby One More Time. That was such a huge hit. And when I say she sang it, she sang along with herself to Baby One More Time. And yeah, the dancers just kind of did their thing around her. The thing that's so crazy is there's at least one of those guy dancers that I think has like been with Britney forever. I don't know if he did like her most recent Vegas show or anything, but there is a dude who is like in every Britney music video, every concert you see, every televised performance. Like, he was always there, and he was just super recognizable. To me, he was as recognizable as Britney Spears, and it's always so funny to see him.
She definitely had a kinship, I should say, with a lot of her backup dancers. Like, she talks, a lot about in some of the other clips that we saw, going shopping with them. Like, they were with her for a while, and she knew them all very personally. And so that's definitely a really cool thing too. And I think speaks to her character as a person as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, she must have been pretty fun to work with, or at least not a nightmare, because I'm sure they were all paid pretty decently, but you're not going to go on multiple tours with someone unless, they're a pleasure to work with. So that's pretty cool. Also in the Easter parade here, we did get like a little behind the scenes tour of Disney MGM Studios with her. Of course, since her knee was busted up, she was being driven around in a golf cart. But it was fun to see some things. Of course, she mentioned that she used to shoot MMC there, but we got to see, she showed us Doug Live. Oh my gosh, Doug Live on 21 Jumbo Street. Do you remember Doug Live at all?
I do, yeah. Yeah, and it was funny the things they were plugging, again, like that total 90s nostalgia, like Doug, Fantasmic, like had just opened. Mm-hmm. The Rock and Roller Coaster was coming online.
So yeah, the Rock and Roller Coaster was under construction, and I'm pretty sure at that point, at least on the signage that we saw, it didn't say, starring Aerosmith or anything yet. So I have a feeling that when this was happening, like they might have still been going through negotiations. I know at one point they were trying to get U2 before they went to Aerosmith. So it's interesting. I'm not sure if it just hadn't been hung yet or what, but it did seem like there hadn't been a star attached yet, which was kind of interesting. And then they also mentioned the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and she says, okay, when we were shooting MMC, this had just opened, because that opened in 94, and she goes, we used to sneak off during our breaks and do this. And she goes, but back then there was only one drop, and now there are multiple drops. And I was like, oh gosh, remember the days of one drop Twilight Zone Tower of Terror? Crazy.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can only imagine like the kind of shenanigans going on with those kids sneaking out there and getting on rides and just having, it's all part of the gig. Like you're just in the parks, like when you're not working, just get out there and get on some rides and have some fun.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And then let's move on to the Disney Channel in concert. Britney Spears, also 1999. Now, Disney Channel in concert, that was a big thing for a while. NSYNC, of course, was my favorite one. But Britney Spears had one of her very own. And this, once again, the stage was set up in front of Rock and Roller Coaster. So it was right in front of that giant guitar, kind of a very cool space to do a concert, and that was a brand new ride at the time. We got some great songs from her, of course. You Drive Me Crazy, I Was Born to Make You Happy, From the Bottom of My Broken Heart, I Will Be There, Sometimes, and of course, Baby One More Time. But the thing I really want to talk about here is some of those segments that we got, because, we've all heard the songs, and it's great to see the songs being performed, but it's those other segments in these specials that show us around the Disney parks that I think are a lot of fun. And one of them is going backstage where she used to shoot MMC, the all-new Mickey Mouse Club. And this was so cool. This is a time when there were still sound stages at Disney MGM Studios. And she goes backstage and she's walking around, and they did a really cool moment where they actually surprised her, because she's not a good enough actress for this to be believed. The way she reacted, I was like, okay, they legit surprised her with some of her old makeup artists being there and the stage manager of MMC being there. And it was just such a nice moment. And, it was only like 2 or 3 years of her life, but at the age of, she was, 17, 18, 19 at this point. It was a good chunk of her life at that point. And yeah, I can't imagine. Like, those memories must have been incredible. And to run into those people again and see all the old photos and all of those, now stars, super young, was just such a fun moment. I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think the stage manager you're mentioning, was his name Dave Coe, maybe? He had mentioned like a phrase to her, good things happen to good people. And he obviously he had that photo album that you mentioned ready to go, that he wanted to show her some of the softball game I think they participated in, and just funny moments from, different skits that they did and things like that. And I agree. She was definitely genuinely surprised to see them all and reminisce with them for a minute.
Yeah. And then they'd show other segments. Of course, when you're doing a Disney concert or a Disney special, they want to show you as much as they can around the resort to get you to want to go and take a vacation. So she goes to downtown Disney, of course, now known as Disney Springs, and very, very different back in the day of downtown Disney. I should do an entire episode on that area, because, gosh, the changes that place and the amount of name changes it's gone through is really crazy. And I can remember as a kid going to, all the different versions of them. So it did change quite a bit, but she was there with her dancers. They went to Magnetron, which I do not remember. It was apparently some magnet store that they just had like every kind of magnet you could ever want, but they were playing around in there. They were playing around in a toy store there. But I think the one that was like, oh my gosh, this is a time capsule, was, I believe it's a Virgin Megastore is what it was, right?
Yep. I knew that's where you were going with that. Man, and kind of funny, little Britney fandom story for me that ties into the Virgin Record Store. Now, it wasn't that Virgin Record Store, but when I was on a vacation, I was out in California, and it was when her second album came out, and I had to go get it right away. And so on vacation, I ended up going over to the record store for Oops, I Did It Again, and got a copy. And while I was there, I just happened to find actually an international Australian version of Baby One More Time that actually came with some bonus songs. And I remember I was just super excited, because I was like, has anybody else heard these songs? It was before, like, Napster was kind of right around the corner, but you couldn't just go get music like you can now, like immediately, and find all those extra tracks that people do. And it had Autumn Goodbye on it, and I'll Never Stop Loving You, and a couple different Baby One More Time mixes and things like that. So I was just like super pumped. So that's kind of my tie-in with, but man, Virgin Record Stores, I miss that. She was over there putting on the headphones, like demoing albums, and, it totally was a nostalgic throwback there.
Yeah, I definitely I went to Tower Records at midnight the day that NSYNC's No Strings Attached came out. So that was the first album I ever went for. Like, the minute it was available, I got it. And then once, this is even weirder, I was in Boston and there was a blizzard out the night that Seussical the Musical was dropping their cast album. And I was obsessed with Seussical. And I was like, okay, I don't care. I'm walking to, I can't remember if it was the Tower Records or if it had changed to the Virgin yet, but it was it was a good walk. It was not close, all the way down the other end of Newbury Street in Boston. And it was literally a blizzard, like no cars on the street. And me and my friends in college, it was freshman year, I remember finding like cardboard in someone's trash. And we took the cardboard and would like kind of use it as a sled to like sled down the street. because we're cool like that. And then, of course, we get to the Tower Records and or Virgin Megastore, and they're closed because it's a blizzard. And I was like, oh, man. So I didn't even get my Seussical album.
Oh, man.
But I'll tell you, it was a memory. And I remember it was, either right before or right after Christmas, and the streets were lined with the trees with all the white Christmas lights in them, and just like this pure white, freshly fallen snow down Newbury Street, which is like a very high-end street in Boston. And it was an amazing night. But yeah, that's what I do for my musical theater love. Nerd.
No, totally. Those are the things that make us fans, man. Like that's you show your commitment, and so that's a great memory.
Now, you mentioned finding the Britney album that was an unauthorized or an overseas album. But one of the things that's funny, I don't know if you caught this in the special here, but Britney finds an unauthorized import album of her very own. And she was like, oh my gosh, what's this? And she got it. And I had to laugh watching because she had like a stack of CDs in her hand. And that would have like been my dream as a kid. Like I always wanted new music, and it was always like going and deciding like what CD I was going to buy with what money I had. And like watching somebody walk around with a stack like that, I was just like, oh my gosh, I would kill to be able to buy a stack of CDs in one trip.
Yeah, no, the only thing I can really relate to that, I never like had the cash flow to like go to like Virgin Records, obviously, and buy all these brand new. I mean, I remember, if you kind of remember, the height of going to like the reseller CD places. I don't know if you ever did that, but like me and one of my best friends in high school and stuff, we would do that all the time. And then you'd find them for, $3 or $4. And then walking up to the cashier with like a stack like that, at a fraction of the cost. That's my only relation to that. But yeah, that would have definitely been a dream to just be like, oh yeah, I'll take this one too.
Yeah. Oh, man. So yeah, Britney Spears, Disney Channel in concert. It was definitely, I think those helped a lot of these artists a lot. I've heard NSYNC say that they owe a lot of their success to the Disney Channel concert. At the time that they were airing these, Disney Channel had recently become part of basic cable as opposed to the paid subscribership that they previously had been. And because of that, a lot of people were tuning into Disney Channel who didn't get it before. And apparently Disney Channel ran these concerts a lot. And I've heard, several of those pop artists give them a lot of credit. So it's kind of cool. And this was obviously a huge deal for Britney Spears as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that they attributed so much of their success to that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if it had recently moved to basic cable with that exposure to coming into multi-millions of homes, it's understandable why.
Yeah. Now, if you were to tune into a Disney Channel concert today, is there any current artists that you feel like they'd be a good fit for Disney Channel and I'd really love to see them? Because there's definitely one I would love to see. I'm curious if you have one.
Great question. Of course, I'm sure you are too with your NSYNC love. I'm currently still a big JT fan. So that's an obvious one. Some of the other ones, I suppose you could look at like Billie Eilish, or I'm trying to think of ones that would be kind of on the Disney Channel realm that are big now.
For me, it's all about Shawn Mendes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I would love to see Shawn Mendes do a Disney Channel concert. I think he's like one of the greatest artists today. I mean, he's extremely adorable, yes, but aside from that, I love his music. I first saw him at a Radio Disney concert that I was covering for some press outlet. And I went and like, I was like old man in the room because like, I do not know anybody performing. Like none of these people sound familiar at all to me. And this kid, Shawn Mendes, comes walking out. They introduce him. And this was before he was a megastar. And he was just had a very aw shucks kind of personality. And he started playing music. And I'm like, oh my God, not only do I love this song, I love his voice. And I was like, okay, him I'm going to follow. And I started paying attention to him. And then I remember he was doing an episode of Conan. So I snuck into the soundstage when he was performing and watched him perform on there. And, I would just keep my eye on him. And of course, now he's a superstar. And I think he deserves all of the superstardom he's getting. I think he's fantastic, and one of like the only pop artists that I pay attention to currently.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not the same right now with the pop stuff. It feels like, I mean, you have like obviously music's just changing over the years like it does, but yeah, that's a great one. I mean, he's definitely amazing.
Yeah, he's great. Let's move on to the Walt Disney World Summer Jam concert. This was also 1999, so this is now the third one Britney's doing in 99. There are probably others as well, but these were the big ones. And it was not just Britney. This was with NSYNC. This is with, who else was there? 98 Degrees, Tyrese, and Britney Spears. Now, NSYNC, as we've talked about, I would do anything for NSYNC. I slept overnight in New York City in the rain to watch NSYNC perform on the Today Show. I showed up at 4:30 in the morning on Hollywood Boulevard to see NSYNC just a few years ago get their star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I almost sang with Lance once at Don't Tell Mama. It ended up being with his friend, but he was very nice. I've met a few of the guys, and they're great, and they're all very, very nice. But there's something when the five of those guys get together, I become a giddy 16-year-old girl. I love them so much.
You know, the No Strings Attached album, like all those, I mean, I remember just listening to them over and over, like you knew them front to back. So I totally understand that, but man, that is awesome that you were able to see them like and actually meet a few of them.
Yeah, they're all. Who was it? Joey, I ran into at Warner Brothers once. He was just hanging out, and I was like, dude, I paid a lot of money to see you, and I still would. So get your butts back together. And he's like, well, thanks for putting my daughter through college. I was like, I probably did. I mean, NSYNC was my first concert ever. I would save all my money to buy tickets to NSYNC. And I love them so much. I still do love them so much. And then Lance was at Don't Tell Mama. I met him. Lance is one of those people, like, if you live in LA, you know somebody who knows Lance, or you know Lance. Lance is just kind of everywhere. He's got his fingers in everything, and he hangs out with a lot of people. So he's just kind of everywhere. And then Justin Timberlake, I met at a movie premiere a friend of mine produced. What was it called? It was some Clint Eastwood movie. Trouble with the Curve was the name of the movie, and Justin starred in it, and I met him there. And so yeah, I gotta meet Chris, and I gotta meet JC, and then I gotta be like, boys, get back together, do your Vegas show, take all my money, it's all good.
Totally, man. I mean, New Kids on the Block's been putting stuff out the last few years, so you can't ever say no.
I went to a New Kids concert a couple years ago for the first time with my sister, and I'm bummed because I was supposed to have just gone again last month when I was back east, but they delayed the concert to this month now, so I'm not back east right now. I'm so bummed. They are so much fun. And when they were huge, I was very young, but my older sisters were into them. So I got into them more like when I got into boy bands in general, with NSYNC and such. But yeah. Anyway, shall we talk about Britney? We should probably talk about Britney a little bit. But this concert, this was a little bit weird. It was all over the place. Britney primarily performed at Magic Kingdom on the castle, or the stage in front of the castle. And of course she sang Sometimes, as well as Baby One More Time, because we can never get enough of that song. And at this point, 99, it would have just been her first album, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's only the music from that first album. And they did this weird thing with a top 10 summer to-do list.
Yeah.
It was a very weird thing.
It was. Number one, party.
Number one was party. You should party in the summer. Okay, that's pretty generic. Number 6 was one of Britney's, and it was meet new people. And she did this awkward thing where I'm just a regular person. One of those sort of interviews where she sits down on the lawn in front of, Cinderella Castle, and she's talking to fans, and then you get those awkward questions like, do you have a boyfriend? No, I don't right now. And do you still keep in touch with your friends? Oh yeah, I do. My phone bill is through the roof because of it. Like, just the most awkward, staged, scripted Q&A. Oh, it was weird.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a little bit awkward, to say the least. It was kind of funny. I noticed, a few things again, like we're kind of riding this 90s groove a little bit in this episode, like, yeah, there's a kid with a Tommy Hilfiger shirt out in the crowd. That totally, I remember that. And it was kind of funny too. Like, you see now when you watch these, holiday specials that they do for Disney and stuff, it's obviously way more produced with the way that they do these little performances out there. And it was pretty basic for this. Like, I noticed there were people, in fact, in the background. The door to the castle was open. You could see through all the way to the carousel, and you could see people roaming around back there, kind of taking pictures and like stopping and looking at the back of her while she was performing. And I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely different. I don't think that this was as common. I mean, there's always been celebrity performances in the parks. I've talked about a lot of the old specials that have been that we've talked about on the show, but there's definitely, like, I feel like we're at a height of it right now, and it's super, super produced. And I always find it fun to see where they decide to stage these things, because, it really, especially when they light it for television, it's like, gosh, these are some beautiful locations. Even an attraction I hate, Mission Space. Oh my gosh, I think it was Kelly Clarkson perform in front of there, and it's like, what a beautiful backdrop. Get rid of the ride, keep the backdrop. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you completely. But yeah, so those locations are, I mean, like you referenced, I kind of made a note about, they had 98 degrees in this one too. They were out at Castaway Cay.
Castaway Cay, yeah. It was cool. They had them all over the place. It was cool.
Yeah, no, they did. Yeah, and I mean, amazing background, like with the ship behind them and everything, and then, like you mentioned, I mean, just all the ones they do now out at Animal Kingdom and Endless, like they're all incredible backdrops and lit so perfectly. But yeah, this one was just middle of the day. There wasn't like a lot of lights. Even like on the finish with Baby One More Time, they had those crazy camera wipes. I don't know if you noticed, where they were like flipping it upside down. Like this is some kind of cool camera trick. And I was like, what is that? And the dancing wasn't like too over the top. The dancers were like all in black. It was just very like pretty basic, but yeah, fun to watch still.
Yeah, and NSYNC and Tyrese were over at Disney MGM Studios in front of the Chinese Theater, and as you said, 98 degrees at Castaway Cay, and Britney Spears over in Magic Kingdom. So it was fun. Do you remember what number 7 on the list was? This was the other Britney one. The must-do summer list. Go shopping.
Oh,
I
yes,
was like,
that's right.
What? Whoever wrote this list, I mean, this was a bad list of stuff to do in the summer. But yeah, go shopping. So you see Britney going shopping on Main Street. But, not as awkward as the Meet New People. That was the most awkward one. But listen, these nostalgic concerts, luckily, once again, all available on YouTube, because some lovely people take the time to upload all of this stuff. It's really great. I can remember long before YouTube, going to the TV museum. I can't remember the official name of it, in New York City. And you would basically be able to pull videos. It was like a library, but you'd have to sit and watch them there. And you'd be able to pull videos of like random stuff. You'd be like, oh, I remember this old show. I want to see this. And they wouldn't have everything, of course, but they'd kind of have samples of everything. So if I said like the Rosie O'Donnell show, they might have like 10 episodes to choose from. And that's what you would have to do. You'd have to like go to these special libraries to see content like this, unless you taped everything yourself. And it's kind of amazing that, like, it's very rare that there's something I want to see, because I have memories for so many old random specials. I was like, gosh, I'd love to see that again. It's pretty rare that I go to YouTube and don't find that somebody has uploaded it. Often it'll be very bad quality, but still, it's there and it exists in some way, shape, or form, which is incredible, because as of right now, Disney Plus doesn't have this sort of stuff. Hopefully they will someday, but also as I go back and watch a lot of these things, they would have to be edited in a lot of cases. On, a couple weeks ago on the show, I talked about the Golden Girls, Walt Disney World 15th anniversary special, and there was definitely some cultural sensitivity stuff in there. And as we were talking about with MMC earlier, and their whole kung fu thing, like, this is stuff that would need to be edited today. In my opinion, I come of the mindset of like, don't erase history, show what it was, have a warning at the beginning explaining, hey, this wasn't right, it isn't right, but this is the time that it was. And that's how I would like to see things, but we know Disney would never do that. They would be heavily edited. So thankfully somebody puts these on YouTube and they exist, you know?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I definitely, it is amazing. Like we mentioned earlier with the Napster reference and stuff. I mean, like the stuff that we have access to now at our fingertips at a moment's notice is just so priceless. And the fact that it's like not behind a paywall or anything. I mean, you just get on YouTube and you search it and it's there. I mean, I definitely remember I have a ton of Disney specials still on VHS tapes somewhere, you know, in my house that I'm not a person that's gone on and like uploaded them to YouTube, and probably somebody already has, as you mentioned. But I mean, thank goodness for those people that, you know, taped all that stuff and take the time to upload it and stuff so that we can all enjoy that at the same, you know, so.
I definitely taped a lot as a kid, and I burned a lot of it to DVD from the VHS tapes. So, like, I have some stuff, like, there was the Disney Channel special, The Making of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, hosted by Rick Moranis. And, like, that's not something you can find. That is something that should be on Disney Plus, but it's not. And they never released it on, like, a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids Blu-ray or anything. So it's just kind of this thing that it exists, it's real, but it's just not easy to find. So thank goodness or at least it's not professionally easy to find. It's always like these uploads from people who don't own the content. So
I agree with you. I hope that Disney Plus eventually goes that route. And even if it was like its own section on Disney Plus where you could just find I mean, think about we wouldn't get anything done for weeks watching all those old specials on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though, like, sincerely, anybody listening to this, if you feel the same way, if you have any, you know, old shows from Disney Channel or any old Disney specials that you would really love to see on Disney Plus does have something on their website where you can suggest titles that you want to see that aren't on the streaming service yet. And I highly suggest going there and checking that out. I know that they check that, and I know that they consider it. And obviously, the more they get of a certain title, the more likely it is that it'll happen. I know people that work for Disney Plus, a lot of the time, the issue is that the quality isn't great. And they're always like, okay, we need to up the quality. In my opinion, I'm like, honestly, you don't. You can put it on a little fuzzy the way that it was on TV originally. You don't need to clean that. I'd still be happy. But they're not going to allow that on their service. So it's one of those things that a lot of people need to want it and make it worth investing the money to clean it up. But I highly suggest going to Disney Plus, to the website, and suggesting titles that you want, because the more people that do it, the more likely it's going to happen. And I do think we've seen some of that happen. We've seen like Adventures in Wonderland show up on Disney Plus, and we've seen some of the old Disney Afternoon stuff. And I don't know that that was all necessarily in the original plan for Disney Plus. So I think it's important. I remember, a special, I should see if this is on YouTube, but a special that I remember on Disney Channel as a kid was like the making of the Main Street Electrical Parade. And I remember it got taped over. I taped it and it got taped over, and I sobbed. I was like so upset, and I've never seen it again since. So I need to see if I can find that.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, there's like the old Walt Disney clips that they put on there. Knowing you and your Eisner love, I mean, if they ever uploaded like all those Michael Eisner like throw-ins to the Sunday night, movie of the week and all that stuff, I mean, that would just be amazing.
You know how they have, I forget what they call, is it the sunrise? The sunrise things on Disney Plus where you'll see like the sunrise over Cinderella Castle and Spaceship Earth and the Tree of Life. I'm like, I just want one of those where it's just like a loop of Michael Eisner giving intros. That's all I need.
Exactly. No, exactly.
I would be very happy. Anyway, listen, Britney Spears is, like I said, going through some hard times. I truly wish her the best, that she gets whatever help she needs and from the right people, because that seems to be the issue right now, is that it's not the right people helping her. And listen, none of us know the full story, but it's just a sad situation. And this was one of the biggest stars in the world. This is somebody who I've honestly never heard like a bad thing uttered about as far as like her treating people poorly or anything like that. She's been in the tabloids and stuff. There's been issues, but
yeah,
she doesn't seem like a bad person, and it's sad to see what's going on. So it's nice to take a look back at some of these happier days in the world of Britney Spears, and sincerely, I hope that there's some happier days in the future as well, and that she comes back to performing and doing it because she wants to, not because she's being forced to. And that's what I gotta say about that. Anything else you want to add before we get to some trivia?
No, I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, she just needs the right people directing her and managing her stuff. And, we're all hoping the best for her and would love to see her. I was actually going to be out in Vegas a couple years ago when she was doing her stuff there. And I was like hoping that I was going to get to go see her show. Cause I actually, as big as a fan as I am, I never got to see her live. And so I was like really looking forward to her residency. And then all the stuff happened and it blew up and she wasn't able to do it. And I was so bummed out. So I hope someday she's able to kind of work things back out and able to like give out to the world her talent again and maybe be able to see her live someday. So
I've never seen her live either because I was giving all of my money to NSYNC.
Yeah.
That's what happened there. But I will say I went to an exhibit recently. It was called The Zone Britney. And it was here in Los Angeles, and it was an Instagram museum, but it was like the best one I've ever been to, where they recreated the sets of some of her music videos. But the cool thing is everybody got like an RFID wristband where you would go to different scenes and you'd do a touch point with the wristband, and then it would like take a photo or a boomerang or a video of you doing something, and that was all sent to you for free for having paid to get in. And it was like the best done selfie museum I've ever been to. It's the only one I've ever been to that I was like, yeah, spend money and go see that. Because most of them I'm like, this is just a marketing tool, just like it should be free. Yeah. But this was so well done. And Britney and her people were involved. Hopefully Britney approved of it and it wasn't just, her people. Who knows at this point. But unfortunately, from what I hear, that space did not survive the pandemic. So it's too bad. But it was a really nice tribute to her. And, she's an icon. Like her or not, she is an icon. And I'm not going to lie, when she first came on the scene, I didn't see her as somebody who was going to survive because I never thought she had a super great singing voice. She had catchy tunes, but she wasn't writing them. And it's amazing what she's done, like her or not.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. She's an icon. There's very few artists that have the one name, kind of moniker. There's Madonna, there's Beyonce. And when you say Britney, everybody knows who you're talking about. So
it's Britney, bitch.
Yep.
Anyway, with that, Jared, let's get to some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Jared, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I'll go ahead and I'll hit you first.
Alrighty.
This is something that she actually recently just gave in an interview about a year ago, I think. But do you know what Britney Spears' all-time favorite Disney movie is?
I don't. I'm gonna guess based on her age. I'm gonna say The Little Mermaid.
It's not.
It's not. Okay, is it an animated film?
It is an animated film.
Okay, let me guess again. How about... You know what? She's kind of an old school from the South. I can picture her growing up watching the old stuff. For some reason, the one that is speaking to me is Sleeping Beauty.
Nope, not it again.
All right, what is it?
It's a pretty interesting answer that she gave.
Tell me it's the Black Cauldron, please.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, deep cut. No, her favorite is actually Frozen, is what she said.
Oh, well, she has kids. Okay.
And it actually was more tied into, she mentioned that it's her favorite because of the sisterhood.
Oh, that's really interesting considering her current relationship with her sister.
I know. That's what I thought as well. Yeah, with Jamie Lynn. But yeah, that's what she said. So her favorite movie is Frozen.
All right. I accept it. Sure. Cool. Well, earlier we were talking about MMC, the all-new Mickey Mouse Club. But of course, that wasn't the first Mickey Mouse Club. So I want to know from you, how many official Mickey Mouse Clubs have there been through the years?
Let's see. We already know MMC. We already know the original. Mm-hmm. So that's two.
There's those two. So the original is the Mickey Mouse Club. That came out in 1955 and ran through 1958. That, of course, made Annette Funicello a huge star. So that's the original. You mentioned the all-new Mickey Mouse Club. That was MMC from 1989 to 1995. Interestingly, that was the longest-running version of the Mickey Mouse Club.
Wow. I'm going to say there were two other versions, so a total of 4.
You're correct. In 1977, there was the new Mickey Mouse Club. So it went the Mickey Mouse Club, the new Mickey Mouse Club, then the all-new Mickey Mouse Club, which was MMC. So that one, the new Mickey Mouse Club, was 1977 to 1979. One of the stars was Lisa Whelchel from The Facts of Life. She played Blair on The Facts of Life. I had no idea that was a thing. And then these days, kind of currently, although I haven't seen anything from them in a while, in 2017, they started Club Mickey Mouse. And although that's, doesn't have the exact same name, they are Mouseketeers. They do call the kids involved with that Mouseketeers. So it is a Mickey Mouse Club. So yeah, the Mickey Mouse Club, 1955 to 1958. The new Mickey Mouse Club, 1977 to 1979. The all-new Mickey Mouse Club / MMC from 1989 to 1995. And then Club Mickey Mouse, 2017, supposedly through today. So yeah, 4. You were right. I got a bonus question for you. Are you up for it?
Yeah, sure. Hit me.
Okay, I found this interesting. Britney Spears was on Star Search in 1992, before MMC. Do you know where the show Star Search shot in 1992 when Britney Spears was on the show?
You know what? I kind of think it was it in Atlanta, in Georgia?
It was not.
Okay. I will take a second stab at that it's not in Hollywood. So I'm gonna guess, was it in Orlando?
It was. Can you get more specific?
Was it at Walt Disney World at MGM Studios?
It was. It was at Disney MGM Studios. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. No,
yeah.
No idea.
Now, the show originally shot at the Earl Carroll Theater in Hollywood. And do you have any idea what the Earl Carroll Theater in Hollywood famously became years later? This is also fascinating to me. It's super nerdy. I'll just give it to you. Yeah. It became Nickelodeon on Sunset, which is where they shot shows like Drake and Josh and iCarly. So basically, my Nickelodeon closed in 2005. That was the one that was at Universal Studios Florida. They closed that, and a lot of the productions were happening out here in Hollywood at that point. So they got Nickelodeon on Sunset. And apparently that was demolished in 2017. So there have now been like 2 generations of Nickelodeon, locations that are gone, which is so sad. It's so crazy. I get it. They're just buildings where shows are made. But gosh, if you grew up with those shows, those locations mean so much to you. And it's crazy to think that that's where Star Search started. Then it became Nickelodeon. Star Search went to Disney MGM Studios. That's where Britney was performing as a kid. Then she got on the show that shot at the same place. It's nuts. It's so wild.
Yeah, cool connections. Absolutely. No, those are great. Some great trivia there.
Awesome. Well, Jared, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you once again for being a patron of Disney Coast to Coast. And is there anything you want to plug before you get going here?
Yeah, I thought about that. I don't really have much to plug. But I definitely enjoy listening to your show. Glad I can be a part of it in some, way. And I really appreciate you having me on and discussing, 2 of my favorite things, Britney and Disney. So
awesome. Well, thanks so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope you all enjoyed today's conversation. On the last couple of episodes, we talked about the new Magic Key program for Disneyland Resort, details about the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, and so much more. Plus, Primetime at the Parks returned with an episode featuring the Golden Girls. And next week, we bring you more of the latest Disney news. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. Before we go, I want to give a quick shout out to Matt Clark, who works with my sister at Staples. Thanks for listening to the show, Matt. I'm glad you enjoy my passionate voice, and be sure to share it with your friends. You can find any links and info mentioned in this episode by checking out the show notes in this episode's description. This episode has been executive produced by Robert Scontrino. Gain rewards like Robert by visiting patreon.com/Disney, with a Z, CTC. And don't forget to leave a voicemail at 818-860-2569 to share your thoughts on today's conversation and the chance to be heard on a future episode. You can find that number in this episode's description, along with a link for some free gifts from me to you. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the Podcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at depodcastnetwork.com. That's DEPodcastnetwork.com.